Oh, friends, it's Romania Black. We're on Puella Magi Madoka Magica, and it's no big deal. It's totally fine. It's the rule of eight. Ah! Okay. If you are tuning in to Romania's channel for the first time, I have a special rule when it comes to series or seasons that are 11 to 13 episodes. And it's called the rule of eight because not only is eight my lucky number, but usually in a story, the eighth episode is that special sweet spot. It's like the little turn into the final arc of the season or the series. And usually the eighth episode, I have rarely been proven wrong. Usually the eighth episode is a really good one. If not an important one, a bonkers one, or a very entertaining one. I have yet to be proven wrong on either of those three fronts, so I am excited. But I have a lot of comments to get through before we start this episode, so we just need to dive right into it, right? And just go with these comments, but I am so excited. Also, I can't believe we're on episode 8. It feels like I just started this series, and I've been watching it for 2 months. What? I'm still so excited, and we still have episodes 9, 10, 11, 12, and a movie to get through at least before the end. So we still have like another month and a half of Madoka Magica, and I am going to miss this series when it's over. I'm just going to say it right now because each week has been such a ride, and I just can't wait to see what happens next. So, with that being said, let's get to these comments. JV noted in episode 4 that Kamijo cut their hand on the CD player when they went down on it, and says how it doesn't hurt anymore and he can't feel the pain anymore because physically he's lost feeling in his hand, but also symbolically represents him losing his purpose in life. And that just happens to coincide with Sayaka, who used her wish to save him, and in saving him and giving the purpose back to his life, now the purpose of her life is seemingly in question. So that's fun. And now she's going through the same with her, being dead and not being able to be Kamijo. Her friend Hitomi may be about to ask him out, and we'll see where that goes. All that fun stuff. But I thought that was really good for JV to point out. User UQ pointed out that Sayaka's soul gem could be in the shape of the musical note C. And then the hair clip in her magical girl form has been called by fans to symbolize a fortissimo, which is a musical term. So it kind of connects to her whole musical background with her making the contract for Kamijo, all of that. Manticore 5733 added to that comment saying the note C minor is usually a very simple but easy and effective note to play, which kind of fits along with Sayaka's character really well, right? I feel like it does. Purple Berry 3564 says that apparently there are some canon witches who are named Blot and 10 Winky Face 43, and I was like, okay. I had the moderator, Geen is the moderator for this series specifically, and they had asked me in the comments if I considered the video games to be a spoiler, and I was like, well, one, as long as it doesn't have any plot information or character information that's going to be revealed in the show, no, it's not a spoiler. And two, I'm never going to play the games, so if there's information from the games, I don't care to find that out. That's perfectly fine. As long as it doesn't spoil like something with the characters that happens in the series that I haven't seen yet, we're fine. So I'm going to take an educated guess and say that Blot and Tin Winky Face 43 are names of witches in the video games. How canon those are and how not canon those are remains to be seen. But for the most part, most of the witches have girl names, specifically Western female names. Behind Zero, SP noted that Sayaka seems kind of like the knight to Mommy, and we'll talk about that a little bit more here in a second, but the sword wielding that she uses in the prior episodes kind of resembles Mommy's with the guns, and I'm like, yeah, the similarities there, like Sayaka has clearly drawn some magical girl inspiration in her attacks from Mommy. Mr. Wonka, which is an amazing handle, said in episode 5, it wasn't meant to be a cliffhanger, but literally the studio ran out of time. They said, I guess they realized when they were storyboarding and animating, they're like, oh shit, this is going to be longer than 20 something minutes. We'll just have Homura flip her hair and we'll just call it good. That's fair. It's a weird cliffhanger, but it works. So I don't have a problem with it, but that's interesting to know. 5 Raw says that Kyuubi's shadows actually looks like a 9-tailed fox. And I was like, okay. And they noted that originally in mythology, nine-tailed foxes were signs of good omens. They were good omens of peace and prosperity, but over time in literature, they became more and more demonized. I feel like it's rather interesting because Kyubey at first seems like a little omen of peace and prosperity. I'm going to give you this wish, this little contract, but over the time we've got to know him, it's like, oh, no, wait, actually you're a demon, right? Everybody's still in the boat like, well, he's just a little alien. He's just granting wishes. He's perfectly fine. I'm like, I don't believe that for a second. He's a demonic cat thing. He's a Lovecraftian Hello Kitty character and he needs to get out. Yes, indeed. But I also was reminded about how the nine-tailed fox in Naruto, without spoiling anything for Naruto, the nine-tailed fox seems like it's a demon, seems like it's a bad thing, but for Naruto, it kind of becomes a good thing. So maybe maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Kyubey will end up being the best thing since sliced bread. Maybe they'll end up being this perfectly innocent, cute little thing. Who the heck knows, right? But I thought that was an interesting comment. Francisca White, 4166, says that to the mom's credit, because her speech is a little bit, it's interesting, from back in episode 5, episode 6, to the mom's credit in episode 6, that throwing the soul gem did allow Madoka to learn about the soul gems and the fact that if you separate them from the bodies, then the bodies become dead. So we wouldn't have found that out if she hadn't have acted. So that bold decision did have a positive reaction and a positive outcome. So maybe it's a sign the mom was on the right track. Who knows? And then 2 more comments. Math noted that the event that is about to happen, I've been thinking it's a monster, but they pointed out the German translation of Walpurgisnacht is basically German. Nacht means night. Walpurg means Walpurgis means a saint, is named after a saint of the 8th century, and is basically a pagan witch festival. So that changes my theories a little bit, because before I thought that this like Walpurgisnacht was like a big monster, but no, instead I feel like now it's a festival coming up in 2 weeks, and that could be like the dimension opening up and multiple witches coming out. It could be multiple monsters. It could be multiple familiars. It could basically be an entire event where like I'm getting a lot of Berserk vibes with that moment, if you know what I mean, that it may issue a whole host of problems. I was reading that translation and Math's comment. I'm like, this sounds an awful lot like Berserk. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see what happens there. So yeah, so that's good to note. And then finally, Pancake had a couple things to point out. One, the idea of the soul being separated from the body is usually an action that's taken by evil characters in the story when they're trying to cheat death and separate their soul from their body. It's just kind of twisted in this way because the characters didn't realize that their souls were being separated from their bodies and put into objects. So are they truly villains, or were they just caught unawares? Also, Sayaka, I do agree. Sayaka is still under this mindset that Mommy was this saint, that Mommy was kind of perfect. And we know that Madoka has seen Mommy at her worst when she was like crying and lamenting. And what's interesting here is that Pancake was asking the question, do we want to be endlessly selfish or selfless? And you have Sayaka, who is trying to be selfless, and we're seeing how that's working out for her. And then you see someone like Kyoko, who's trying to be selfish, and we're seeing how that's working out for her. And then I feel like Madoka is trying to ride that middle ground. I feel like Madoka is going to be like the Goldilocks of all this. That Madoka is going to do things for herself, but she's also going to try to do things for others as well. So maybe she's the Goldilocks scenario, and maybe she's the perfect magical girl that Kyubey's wanted all along. Maybe Kyubey's been after Madoka because she can save the world, and Kyubey's just trying to help everybody. I don't know. We'll see. But finally, Pancake makes this comment about the theme of this story, or one of the themes, is talking about how growing up is messy and full of flaws and full of failure. And that is exactly true. All of these adult moments coming to play for these girls is showing just how messy puberty is. And that transition into adulthood is full of failures and mistakes. And it's okay to have those. You know, it's just in this case, it puts this, you know, life or death spin on it, which is rather interesting. Taking a coming of age slice of life story and a magical girl setting and then mixing it all together and throwing in some Lovecraft. Like, it's just, it's real fun. I love Madoka so much, and it's just the best ride. So yeah, I poured myself a cup of coffee. My dogs may be a little bit agitated because they just got a treat, and usually after that, they're grumpy. You'd think it'd be the opposite, but then again, Huckleberry's kind of like Cubey, so interesting. But yeah, I'm super excited, y'all. We're not gonna waste any more time. Rule of 8, I cannot wait. So we're gonna start episode 8 of Puella Magi Madoka Magica, and we're gonna do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's do this. Oh, Romania. He's just a widow cat thing. He's just a cute little cat thing. He's not doing anything wrong. He's not doing anything wrong. He's just, you know, cultivating young girls to become witches. You sons of bitches. Oh my god! Oh, Rule of 8. Rule of 8 has not let us down as of yet. It stands. Rule of 8 is not letting us down. But oh my god, now the stakes of Madoka becoming a magical girl are all too apparent. Oh my god. Oh my god. So let's break this down. This episode, there's a lot to break down in this episode. Am I surprised that the magical girls can turn into witches? No. Am I surprised a little bit that that's been seemingly Cubey's goal all along? Yeah, a little bit. So that's what he's been doing. He's just been cultivating witches from the start. So basically, Cubey being called the incubator. So he's an incubator. His job is to put the little eggs into the incubator and roll them around until they hatch into witches. That's literally what he's doing with these girls, turning them into magical girls, and magical girls are like the next evolution into witches. Oh my god, it's like you took the body, you separated the soul from the body, you put the soul through a pit of despair, and then from that despair it hatches into a witch. Oh my god. So yeah, basically step 1. Lure the girl into a contract where they get a special wish, right? But the problem is that wish usually ends up becoming like a monkey's paw and it ruins their life. Step 2, the girls spiral into despair and become cursed and become witches. Step 3, you get a new girl to make a contract to go after that witch. And then step 4, the cycle just rinses and repeats. And then, if you're lucky, step 5 is that the seeds, once they're used, are food for Cubey. So it's all just a nice little recycling business. It's all just Cubey playing frickin' Harvest Moon out on these girls. Ah! And Sayaka, my girl, I've run through the gambit with her because at the very beginning of the series, I didn't like her at all. And we were talking about it in the Discord and in the comments section. And I think I was telling Pancake this. I think that the reason why I didn't like her at first is because she was so like instantly judgmental of Homura, which Homura, we're going to talk about Homura. That's a whole nother thing. But she was instantly judgmental of Homura. She never would listen to Homura, even when Homura was seemingly, and now it makes sense why she didn't listen. She explained it. She's like, you're a liar and you're not doing this to help me. You're doing this to help someone else. But the problem is the things that Homura is saying to her are helpful. And if she listened, this wouldn't have happened. But it's kind of like putting a Band-Aid on a gaping wound, right? It's going to soak up some of the blood, but the wound's still there. You're going to have to sew that shit up. And at this point, there's no sewing it up. So it's just like Homura was trying to put a Band-Aid on a problem that wasn't necessarily going to be fixed by her. And Sayaka kind of saw through it and was like, I don't want your help, whatever. So I get Sayaka on that. The problem that makes me so frustrated with her character is that at the very beginning, she was very stubborn about judging Homura and not being on board with her, whereas Madoka seemed to have listened out to her. I've got some thoughts about that whole thing. But then she like put mommy up on a pedestal, didn't want to see like the actual humanity in her, just wanted to make her like a martyr. And then when she was gone, she was devastated by it. Then she, you know, against her best judgment, she made the choice to make the wish. And I guess, you know, it all worked out. She got her wish, got what she wanted, but it ruined things for her. And the thing that I really liked about Sayaka the last couple episodes is that she was starting to like bear more of her humanity and let down those walls and be open and honest rather than berating herself and putting up all these barriers. And I was really liking that. You know, I'm a communications major, so I'm like, yes, talk it out, let's go. And then she backtracks in this episode so hard. I was like, girl, no. And I get why she's doing it. But the thing that's so frustrating about this show is that we see Sayaka's like internal monologue later on when she's like, I'm an idiot. Why did I do that? Why did I push Madoka away? Why didn't I just accept her compassion and accept her friendship instead of just making her feel worse and also try to persuade her to become a magical girl? Like, why would you do that? And she calls herself an idiot. And I'm like, yeah. And then we had that whole conversation on the train, which we're going to talk about, but oh my gosh. So Sayaka, like, girl frustrates me so much. And now I guess it don't matter because she's a witch. Her soul's like exploded and she's a witch. I was like, I knew that was going to happen. It just, the souls got black and they became the seeds. Yep. So my thing is, we might as well put Madoka up here. Madoka is seemingly has this potential. She is our shoujo and shonen protagonist, right? The chosen one. She has this potential, right? This potential to be all powerful, right? So the problem with that is there are pros and cons. The pros, they talk about being universe bending, which, you know, that can go either two ways. In Madoka's mind, Madoka believes that it could be used to save Sayaka, which, cool. That all sounds well and good. I'm going to move this over just a hair. Yep. That all sounds well and good. The problem is also the cons, which are if Kyubei's whole goal is to grow magical girls that will become witches, yeah, her being the strongest magical girl of all sounds all well and good, but in Kyubei's mind, he's like, yeah, you're the most all-powerful girl, a magical girl that will ever exist, but that also means that eventually you're going to grow into the most powerful witch of all. That's probably what Homura is trying to prevent, right? Is that the cons are that the more powerful the magical girl, the more powerful the witch. And what it's like a super fruit and harvest moon. He's like, I can make a big ass witch that's going to take like 20 magical girls to kill her, and then I'll just have to get a bunch of girls to make a contract, and it'll create even more witches, and it'll just grow and grow like a damn pyramid scheme. And Kyubei is like a multi-level marketing Avon spokesman who has somehow conned all these girls into buying the lotion. And it's like, yeah, I feel like he's just like, well, we'll just, and there's a side of Kyubei that's interesting in all of this, which we'll get to, but he's like, yeah, the more powerful the magical girl, the more powerful the witch. So it's like, would Madoka at this point be able to stop the cycle? Is she going to be able to stop the cycle or be the worst addition to it? And honestly, you know, the rules of the protagonist would tell us, oh, well, she'll stop the cycle. She's not going to become a witch. But I don't know, right? I don't know how she can do that, and I don't know why, and what her motivation would be to keep her from turning into a witch. So meanwhile, we have Homura over here, who is possibly from an alternate timeline and is wanting to save Madoka at all costs. Now it all makes sense. Now her being distant to Madoka and being cryptic and not wanting to give answers, that all makes sense. She's trying to, like, you know, whenever you have a time travel narrative and you have a character from another timeline or another time period, they can't say things because they're trying not to alter the timeline too much. They're just trying to do little minute things, but the butterfly effects have already happened, right? The butterfly effects are already there. Like, everything Homura has done leading up to now makes so much more sense because she's trying not to alter the timeline too much. She's trying to just make little minute decisions to try not to skew the timeline too much, but to keep Madoka from becoming a magical girl. Now, there could be reasons for that. One, in Homura's timeline, does Madoka become this all-powerful witch that destroys the world? That could be. In Homura's timeline, does Madoka become a magical girl and then dies? That could be. In Homura's timeline, does Madoka end up destroying everything around her and possibly nearly kills Homura? I feel like whatever the answer is, whatever the reason is, I feel like in Homura's alternate timeline, Madoka does become a magical girl, and it's a big problem for either just Homura or for the rest of the world, or for Madoka, or all three. So I feel like that's reasoning enough. I'm wondering if the whole the whole what's it called? The whole Wallsprick Narkt or whatever, the German thing that's coming, if that's going to be Madoka. I don't know. If Madoka's going to become that thing, I don't know what's going to happen. So, but we're going to go through this episode. We're going to talk it out. But this episode, oh my God, it was so good. This is maybe my favorite episode so far. One of my favorites. It's right up there. But God, it is hard to watch Sayaka just sit there and just completely thrash this witch. And then when we see the witch's realm fading, she's like, oh, it's pretty easy once you get the hang of it. When you see the musical notes healing her, there's no way I can lose now. And the cape falls, and you see a princess or a being with a crown on its head holding the little torch of light, and that's where the witch was coming from. So all these witches were magical girls. Just so you know. They're all magical girls that have died. And now the question is, when Homura said she's watched hundreds and hundreds of magical girls die, did she mean legit die, or did she mean turn into witches? Could be both. Could be both, right? But God, it's so painful to see her take the grief seed and for her to be cocky. It's so painful to watch her be cocky and be like, here, take this. Now we're even, or I don't need this. To see her try to be arrogant, it's so frustrating because it's fake. Like with Kyoko is arrogant. I feel like Kyoko is maybe the best suited person to be a magical girl because she is so selfish and she's just like, whatever, I'm living for me, whatever, we're gonna eat my apples and I'll just live day to day and we got it good. But Kyoko also doesn't have anybody she's really living for. Her wish was for her dad, and he's dead now, so she can't do anything about it. So, whereas Sayaka's wish was for Kamijo, he's still alive and kicking, so it's a different scenario. But I feel like Kyoko is like an ideal magical girl because her personality is really well suited to be a magical girl, because she's like, my life was kind of shitty before and now I can do whatever, so oh well. You know? So, but it's painful to see Sayaka do this because that's not her. That's not how she is. And to watch her try to be this fake arrogant, it's so frustrating because you're like, that's not you. Why are you being this way? And it's so hard to watch. It just makes you feel so bad for her. Like, I feel really pitiful for her. She's like, I don't want to say I owe you. And then she tells Madoka, let's go home. And I feel for Madoka because she's like watching her friend tear herself apart and self-destruct. And the moment she said, I'm a little tired, I was like, She threw away that grief seed. She didn't use that grief seed. And then she said she was tired. I'm like, that's not a good sign. And I think that Kyoko knows. She's like, you need to use this. It's meant for you to keep you from doing that. But nope. She's like, that idiot. So anyway, this idea of the lost future again, I'm wondering, I'm like, are there, and this other Madoka that has long hair, I'm like, is this the other version of her? Is this another version of her? Is Homura Madoka? I'm still wondering what that cat is there for. I don't know yet, but I'm like, oh my God, did the cat in another timeline, did she have a cat in another timeline? The cat made a deal with Kyubey to become a magical girl? Can cats do that? I don't know. Is it possible? Did Madoka in the other timeline become a magical girl and then her cat, not wanting to see her die, became a magical girl too? I don't know. We'll see. I'm still curious how that cat ties into everything. But, And then, of course, we see at the very end, Madoka standing next to the tower against Homura, and they're facing each other like they're standing off. I'm very curious if that means that Madoka and Homura are going to face one another. And like my fear in all of this, because I thought for a second when Homura was about to kill Sayaka, I thought that Madoka was coming up the stairs and to catch up. And my fear is that Madoka is going to think that Homura is trying to hurt her, or that Homura was behind Sayaka becoming a witch, which is not entirely true. And I'm afraid that all of these things happening, that despite what Homura is trying to do to stop the timeline and to stop Madoka from becoming a witch or a magical girl, either one, I feel like it's still going to happen no matter what Homura does. And it's like, son of a bitch, no. So what do we do? But yeah, the moment there was rain coming down, I was like, this does not bode well. For this episode, setting the tone, right? I think it's interesting that we have all of these purple lights. That seems very Homura coded, which is interesting. And we have Sayaka and Madoka under the train waiting on them. But yeah, I get what Madoka is saying. She's like, just seeing you like this, making these statements, she's like, I know that's not you, that you're hurt. You know, why are you lying? And I hate that Sayaka told her to basically just become a magical girl. She's like, how can anything help me? She's like, why don't you become a magical girl too? And it was so hard. She's like describing herself as this rock, and all she can do is hunt witches, and that's all she can do left. And now that line from that one witch that says, I like fools, I don't like fools, I don't want to work. Like I said a few episodes ago, that was a sign that she didn't want to do this anymore, and she became a witch. Yep. So, I mean, I feel really bad for Sayaka when she talks about this, and Madoka's like, I just want you to be happy. And then she's like, well, then why don't you fight them? And I'm just like, that's so unfair. That's so unfair to say to Madoka. Because she's like, you've got more talent than anybody else. She's like, why don't you help somebody that's struggling like I am? I'm like, Sayaka, that's your friend. Why would you tell her that? Like, in that moment, I get Sayaka is mad, but I'm like, that was such a shitty thing to say. And Madoka, like, the last thing she wants to do, she's had people tell her nonstop she should become a magical girl, except for Homura, but Homura can't say much else because she's trying not to alter the timeline too much. So it's like, She's like, why don't you try to do what I've done? You can't give up your humanity out of pity. And Madoka's like, well, it's not pity. I just want to help you, and I want to be your friend. And then when she says, don't follow me, that part sucked. And her in the rain. And then the thing that gets me is that she's like, well, I'm beyond help now, and I shouldn't have said that. And I'm like, girl, I feel like this, with Sayaka's story, it's a very good insight into how teenage girls can be when they just, like, they judge themselves so much, and they put themselves down so hard, and it just starts to, like, completely eat away at yourself. Like, the soul gem is getting eaten away from the inside, and it has this dark curse forming from within. That's exactly what's happening to Sayaka. And, of course, these young, impressionable, hormonal teenage girls are targeted because they're so emotional, and their, like, emotions and everything are developing so rapidly and crazily. It makes sense why Kyubey would target them, right? So, okay, can we go to Homura's, like, on the corner, like, home style Chicago, like, that whole, like, this apartment on the corner of these two streets looking creepy as sin. It reminds me of, there's a serial killer named Holmes that, one of my favorite historical books is Devil in the White City by Eric Larson. It's about the 1894 World's Fair in Chicago, Illinois. And it basically is about, like, the late 1800s, and this serial killer that during this World Fair where everyone came, he was a serial killer that created a hotel to kill people in. It's an amazing book. It's really good. You should go read it. But this apartment, my point is, looks exactly like it. And the inside, can we talk about the inside? Like, the fact that we have, like, Homura, the fact that Kyoko walked in with this scythe pendulum, this guillotine pendulum, and was like, and all these, like, these circular benches, and this seance table, and all these candles, and Kyoko was like, you got any ramen? I just imagine walking in, you walk into this pitch white room with rainbow colored Google style benches, columns, like these creepy Victorian Gothic candles, a conspiracy board of witch nonsense in the background, and a guillotine pendulum. And you look around and go, yeah, this place seems pretty normal, so the ramen's in the back, right? This is the most insane setup I've ever seen of a room. I don't even know where to begin. There's so many elements that I'm just like, wait, what? Nobody questions this. But the conspiracy witch board is just completely blowing my mind. There's like a picture of a witch, it looks like in the background with train tracks. I'm going to be analyzing this for a while. Okay. So, the Valpurgisnacht is there with train tracks, and it looks like a monster. There's like a wheel with a witch there. Okay. She's breaking the chopsticks. I like she breaks the chopsticks with her teeth. There's something that says like Hojun, and it's like a witch with a big eye in the center of it. There's another angelic looking monster with eyes. I don't like any of this. What the fudge? Some of it's too small for me to see. There's a bunch of little there's a bunch of witches that look like magical girls. Now that we know the magical girls become witches, all the little shadow outlines of the magical girls are them becoming witches. Oh my god, there's too much to analyze in this one shot. I'm gonna try to translate some of the stuff I see though. Yeah, so Alpurgistart. We're gonna get that up here. And yeah, there's magical girls, there's a monster there, there's a bunch of eyeballs, it's creepy as sin. Okay, so we have this one. I'm gonna translate it. Alpurgish not. Oh, Walpurgis night. Okay, so that's the night that all this is going down. Okay. That's what she's been researching. She's like, it should appear within this area. I'm wondering if it's talking about, is Sayaka going to be connected to that, maybe? Possibly. And she's like, what are you basing that on? And she's like, statistics. So, statistics! Has she been to multiple timelines? Does she keep going to each timeline trying to prevent each version of Madoka from becoming a magical girl because of the outcome? Oh my god. And then she's like, what do you mean? I've never heard of this before coming to the city before. So yeah, we see like it looks like it has like it looks like a court jester. It has big sleeves and it has like the little pigtail things. I don't know how to feel about this. Nope, I don't like this at all. I don't like how this is going. Okay, now it says like all the magical girls there. Is it going to be like a bunch of witches at once? Or has she been to multiple timelines and tried to stop multiple different ones from appearing? I don't like this at all. Okay, so then we have, yeah, there's all the different features of it. Okay, there's a poem up there. I want to translate this and see what we get. There's like a poem. You can kind of see the words from it. So I'm going to try to translate this and see what we get. So bear with me. We have do, moot, ver. It's like a damn icing test. You must understand. Make 10 out of 1. Oh my god. And 2 labs go. And make it easy. So bist du reich. That's how you're rich. What was here? Verlier de Viril. Lose the 4. Ausfunt und Sex. And what does it say? Oh, Flint. Oh, never mind. I got this right. Trying to like read this tiny writing is crazy. From Flint and 6. So sagt the hex. That's what the hex. Mach 7 und 8. That's what the hex says. Be careful. So it's Val Binche? What does it say? So be careful. That's it. I'm gonna try to get this right. Volbrucht. Broached. Then it is finished. Okay. Und nun ist eins. And 9 is 1. Und then is keins. And 10 is none. Das ist das Hexen in Malloins. Okay, so this says, according to this poem, this is a rough Google translation. It says, you must understand, make 10 out of 1, and 2 labs go. I think that's lab. It's weird. And 2 go and make it easy. That's how you're rich. Lose the 4 from flint and 6. That's what the hex says. Be careful. Then it is finished. And 9 is 1 and 10 is none. That's the witchcraft once in a while. What? So it sounds like make 10 out of 1. Meaning making, like 10 witches, making 10 familiars out of 1 witch, and that's how, or maybe you could take like 1 witch and make 10 magical girls from it, or you make 10 familiars out of 1 witch, and lose the 4 from flint and 6. That's what the hex says. Be careful. 9 is 1 and 10 is none. That's the witchcraft once in a while. It seems like gathering a bunch of them together and that it's going to create something. Now, this one thing also says like 1 out of 25 slides. What the fudge? Yeah. And so then we have, okay, 1914 butcher. What does butcher mean? Butcher means books. So 1914 books. Has this been going on since 1914? Is that what we're studying? She's like, neither of us exactly the trustworthy type. But I don't think you have to be that secretive about it. And she's like, yeah, if you're time traveling, you do. Oh my God. So Kyubey just showing up at her house, being like, of course it followed Kyoko. That's how it knew where she was. But him just showing up and being like, well, hi, I'd like to know why you're here as well. So Kyubey doesn't really know what she is. I think Kyubey suspects he knows that she's a time traveler, but maybe something else. But he doesn't realize why she's kind of abnormal. So he said before that she was made from a contract, but not made from a contract. So I don't know. Did Madoka make a wish in a previous timeline to make her into a magical girl? Was that the wish? I want my cat to be a magical girl, Kyubey. And he was like, okay. And and then we went from there. Maybe. I just love that Kyubey's like, hi, friends. And I'm like, back off, bastard. Yeah. And he's like, how dare you show your face? And he's like, I feel I'm not welcome. I'm like, oh, you think? Yeah, and I came all this way to give you some rather important information. I'm curious at the fact that Sayaka's depleting herself far faster than I expected. So Kyoko seems to understand that if you let the soul gem deplete of all of its magic, you'll turn into a witch. I feel like Kyoko knows that. Homura knows that. But I feel, my question is, why does he want to tell them? Why does he want to tell them that? And I'm wondering if Kyubey is thinking that Madoka may... It feels like, on the one hand, he wants to keep Sayaka around as a magical girl to convince Madoka to become a magical girl. Here's the thing. Kyubey has made it explicitly clear that he does not quite understand human emotions. He doesn't quite understand how the magical girls work. He just knows they make really good witches and it works really effectively. So whether he understands humans or not, he knows how the system works and he's seen it in action. So he's like, I don't know. But for all Kyubey knows, he doesn't seem to quite understand human emotions. So he may think it's better to keep Sayaka around to keep trying to manipulate Madoka, and he may think that once Sayaka is a witch or is dead, that will just drive Madoka further from becoming a magical girl. And Kyubey is like, I don't want that to happen, so I need these two bums to go save Sayaka so that she doesn't become a witch and I can still convince Madoka to become a magical girl. Right? He doesn't want her to fall into despair before she's even a witch or a magical girl. He's like, it's not just all the magic she's using. She's starting to carry a curse within herself. So it's not just the fact of using up all your magic. It's the fact that if you start to carry these negative, despairing emotions, it will turn you into a witch. So maybe if you use up all the magic and you're not in despair, then you'll just die and the soul gem will just cease to exist. But if you have a moment of despair in you, you'll start to carry a curse and become a witch. I like that as Kyoko holds the soul gem with the spear is coming out of the soul gem, like it's an extension. The weapon is an extension of her soul. And she's like, whose fault do you think that is? Also on the table behind the bowl now, where Kyoko is pointing the soul gem at Kyubey, there's an hourglass. Why? Just Shaft Studios like, oh, by the way, time's running out. Just so you all know, here's a little symbol of it. We don't have to explain it. We don't have to explain this apartment, so we're not going to explain this to you. And he's like, at this rate, it might become an issue before the Valpurg Gishnart arrives. So Kyubey knows about this event too, interestingly enough. He just is choosing not to say anything to Madoka or anybody else about it. What are you talking about? He's like, you should ask her instead of me. You already know the answer, don't you, Homura? So yeah, by all accounts, Homura's already been to the timeline where this giant thing shows up. Maybe it was that from... Okay, so the very beginning, the first episode, we saw Homura look down at Madoka as this giant thing was attacking the city. Was that the Madoka of that timeline interacting with Homura? And then all of the different versions of yourself are connected through dreams? Maybe. Who knows? We don't know. I just love whenever Kyubey and Homura have the stare down, like Homura, because she's human, she's just staring with like the resting witch face, like, but Kyubey's just like has the big unblinking soulless eyes. I'm like, mother trucker. He's like, you must be most interested to hear where you... He's like, I'd be most interested to hear where you obtained that information from. So Kyubey's trying to figure her out. Kyubey is trying to figure out Homura and figure out what in the world she's up to and where she's come from and what the deal is. And I like that, again, whenever Kyubey gets frustrated, his little tail flickers. So he's just like, I just want to know, like, what's your deal? Like, he just is trying to figure it out, right? And his tail's flicking because he's annoyed. I love it. And he's like, could you be from another timeline? That's what he ends up saying. And she's like, I don't want to hear anything else from you. Also, we have, like, inside, we see, like, a ballerina dancing behind Homura, and there's, like, a Ferris wheel, and there's, like, other girls or flowers inside of it. Like, what the fudge? Insane. And she's like, be gone. And then Kyubey is just like, fine, I'll leave. I see when I'm not wanted. It's like, yeah. I think it's interesting that I was questioning why doesn't she kill him? She's already killed him before. He has spares. He has mother trucking spares. He has other clones of his body, and then he cannibalizes and eats his own body again. The fudge! The moment he started eating up his little body again, I was like, oh, nope. Like, tap out. Nah. We ain't gonna have this no more. This is terrifying. So you can't kill him. You can't kill Kyubey, right? Or he just respawns. The fudge. She's like, he's like, killing that thing won't solve anything. And she's like, okay. What is the issue mentioned with Sayaka? And I love that, oh my god, Homura's like, I don't really want to talk about it. Her soul gem's too tainted. If it's not purified soon, the damage is irreparable. Meaning she's going to become a witch. Yep. And then everything turns to like oranges and yellows, which is typically a color referred to for warning. You know, no big deal. Meanwhile, and then we go back out of that. Meanwhile, it's the next day. I love the English teacher is back to talking about auxiliary verbs. Like, says, you know, it means that someone has to do something, which is so funny that we're talking about auxiliary verbs in this discussion of an episode involving people taking action or not taking action, that someone has to do something. And then she says an obligation of sorts, but have to has a different context. And we say that yeah, so Sayaka is absent. That's what that means. She's not coming to school. So yeah, I like the concept that the English lesson, my dogs are being ridiculous. The English lesson is connected to the themes of the story of what we do for others and if we expect anything in return. Uh and poor Madoka, of course. Madoka's worried that she should have gone after Sayaka, and it's like, girl, no. So this part's interesting. The conversation with Hitomi and Kamijo, where she sits down with him saying she has to tell him something. And of course, Madoka tries to find Sayaka and she hasn't come back yet. And we see like everything's empty. Like the city is empty. There's nobody around. It's just kind of hollow, kind of representing the inside of Sayaka through all of this. But poor Madoka. And she's like, I have to find Sayaka-chan. So here's the thing. This is the crazy part. The conversation with Hitomi and Kamijo, we don't get to hear it. So for all we know, she may not be confessing to him. I mean, I think she is. I think she's confessing to him, and I think they're hitting it off, and she's like, you know, having this conversation with him and telling him how much she likes him and everything, and they're having this discussion, and because she's kind of blushing as she says it, and they're talking. But here's the thing. What if she wasn't? What if she had this conversation with him on the bench and was like, hey, you know, I think you're a great guy, but I also know that my friend Sayaka likes you. You should probably, you know, talk to her. She's a really nice girl and she probably cares about you. And they ended up talking about Sayaka. What if that was the case? We don't know. Now, Sayaka was close enough that she was watching them, but was she just watching or was she able to hear them too? That's the question. That's what we don't know. We don't know if she necessarily heard what they were saying and it was a confession, or if they were just having this conversation and that's it. The point, because he's not holding her hand, he's not like walking her back, you know, he's not like, you know, grabbing her hand and hugging her or something. They're just having a conversation. So Hitomi may have very well confessed to him, and he may have been like, hey, no, we can just be friends, but I like Sayaka. We don't know that. Now, it could be a confession, and they're hitting it off and doing great, and that's what spirals Sayaka, and she can hear all of that, and we just aren't privy to that. But it's not made 100% certain in the episode. So it'll be interesting to see if she becomes a witch, and she tries to attack Hitomi, if that ends up becoming a thing. But I don't know. But poor Sayaka, she just spirals into this pit of despair. And then we see her trying to fight these familiars over and over again. I think it's interesting, the idea of the familiars. So here's the thing too. The familiars, if we're talking about like 10 becomes 1 or 1 becomes 10. The idea that the familiars, the witches, like they sprout off their despair like seeds and they grow into the familiars like shadows of themselves. But then those can manifest into new witches. So it's just like this big endless cycle. And the thing is, it's like the witches give you the grief seed to purify your soul, but the familiars do not. So it's just perpetuating this cycle. Like it's hard to stay a magical girl and not turn into a witch because there's all these familiars, but the familiars don't cure you. So you're using magic and tainting your soul while fighting the familiars, but you need to find the original witches in order to get the grief seed. So it's like, it's this damn pyramid scheme. The moment that Homura showed up, I was like, Sayaka is not going to want to hear anything she has to say. And Homura's like, you don't need to waste any more magic. She's like, your soul gem's at its limit. You need to purify it. And she gives her a grief seed. And of course, Sayaka kicks it away. And I was like, you know what? I think, as much as I wouldn't like Homura, I would use I'd use that grief seed, you know? And then I'd have a talk with her about it after that, been like, thanks, now let's talk. But she's so stubborn and she's so proud to be like, I don't want to do anything for anybody else. I want to do it all for myself. I'm like, but girl, that's not how this works. It's so frustrating. She does hit it on the head that Homura is not doing this for Sayaka. She's doing it for Madoka. She's like, you others, does being helped by someone else bother you that much? And she's like, I'm not going to be like the rest of you. That's why I decided I'm not going to associate with people who use or abandon others. I don't need a reward for my work. And honestly, I don't think Homura's used anybody necessarily. She has abandoned people, but she didn't use or abandon. I mean, Mommy, she tried to help her, and it was to help Madoka, but it would have helped Mommy as well. And she's like, "You're gonna die." And she's like, "Only when I can no longer kill any more witches." Well, that seems to have happened. So there we go. And then I wouldn't be any use anyway, right? Which is awful. Like, she's spiraled into this pit of despair. She has no other place in this world. And Homura's like, I'm so curious to know Homura's backstory now. And I know we're going to get it at some point. But I'm so curious to know, like, why is Homura the way she is? Like, does she relate to Sayaka? Did she feel the same way too? Did Madoka save her and then something happened to her and so now she feels obligated to try to save her in this other world or other timeline? Is there a reason behind it? Like, what is her deal? Why does she feel this way? And she's like, I want to save you. And she's like, you're a liar and you say empty words. And then she's like, and that's how you keep making Madoka suffer. She's like, everything I do is for her. The moment she said that, I was like, oh, everything you do is for Madoka. That is some like pseudo yandere, but not. I'm so fascinated. Like, she's trying to do this to save Madoka, but why is everything she do for her? And then she has this like little spinner on her, right? And she says, you're pretty sharp. Yes, you're right. I'm not doing this to save you. I'm doing it because I don't want to make Madoka suffer. I don't want Madoka to see you destroy yourself. Right, because she's like, if Madoka sees you destroy yourself, it could make her spiral and become a magical girl, right? And make a dumb decision. Because Madoka's been trying to help Sayaka because she's her best friend this whole time. If she sees Sayaka's destroyed herself, she'll be in a place of emotional vulnerability, which Kyubey will try to take advantage of because that's all Kyubey knows to do. She's like, if you refuse me here, you're going to die anyway. So if you keep making Madoka suffer, then I might as well. And we see her with the gem on her hand. So her gem is on her hand, right? And that's where her weapon comes out of. Yep. I'll kill you myself here and now. And then that's when Kyoko tells her to leave. And she's like, weren't you trying to save her? And she's like, well, you can't use that weird technique while I'm holding you like this. But then what does she do here? Like, she has her weapon, and her weapon, like, opens up, and there's these gears, and there's, like, 2 gems there, and it, like, pops out a grenade? Is the little, like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Dual disc on her arm able to transcend time and space? What? I feel like maybe, and then she uses the flash grenade. I feel like maybe Homura might have become a magical girl the same reason that Madoka wants to become a magical girl, to save Sayaka. I feel like maybe Homura became a magical girl to save Madoka and was willing to give up her soul to save her. And she's like, if I don't keep her from becoming a magical girl, then what was the point of me giving up my soul? Right? Same thing with what Madoka is considering with saving Sayaka. She's like, if I don't become a magical girl, then I need to save Sayaka. Otherwise, what would be the point of her giving up her soul for that too? So it's just creating this cycle, right? Anyway, then we have this train scene with the primary colors on the trains. Oh my God. But then there's this conversation, right? And it is like the most out of left field, weird, like the animation is gorgeous. Like the all black train, the black and white, the guys, you can't see their faces. It's all in darkness. And they talk about basically how women like abuse and women enjoy being used and they enjoy being submissive. It's like the most misogynist conversation on this train, which I would like to say that it's not realistic, but unfortunately I've seen conversations like this. And he's like, you've got to take hold of all the money she makes. Women are idiots, you know. The moment they get some money, they'll blow it on stupid shit. And it's like a reference of being like, women are idiots. The moment they get any type of power, they're going to expend it and use it on stuff that doesn't matter. And that's a direct correlation to how Sayaka feels right now in what she used on the Wish and how she screwed herself over. These guys are almost like confirming it on saying that. about women. You can't treat them like real people. And instead, he's like, instead, you should train them like the dogs they are, which sounds like what Sayaka is doing now as a magical girl. So everything these guys are saying, as misogynistic and horrible as it is, Sayaka has been embodying in her mind the last how many days? And they're like, some people get off on it. You got to threaten to smack them once and then they'll shut up. Give them an inch, they'll be all over you. And just the awful things he says, Sayaka takes to heart and like compares herself to what they're saying, and it just makes her sick. And then she gets pissed when he says they need to learn their place and what a pain it is to dump them. And then she stands in front of him and says, tell me more about her. Like, Sayaka gets so scary in this moment. We're like, the woman you were talking about, tell me more about her. And like the darkness, the black ink. Oh. And they're like, are you in middle school? You shouldn't be out this late. She's like, she probably loves you and tried her hardest to make you happy. And instead, you knew that, though. And you're comparing her to a dog. And you're not even going to thank her. You're just going to get rid. And they're like, do you know this kid? And so, yeah. And then the moment, like, I'm pretty sure she becomes a witch and kills these two guys. She's like, is this world even worth fighting for? What have I been fighting for? Tell me right this second. And if you don't... And yeah, she basically turns into a witch. Yeah. Oh my God. Terrifying. Terrifying. Yep. And the music notes in her eyeball. Oh my God. So I'm pretty sure she killed and ate those guys, right? Which is terrifying. Meanwhile, we have Madoka trying to find Sayaka. There's a creepy statue of a chameleon or a cat demon or, you know, something. And she goes to sit on the bench. And that's when Kyubey just comes out of the shadow. He's like, do you hate me too? I was like, ah! I love that Kyubey is trying so hard to be innocent. Kyubey is like, I'm just a widow cat. I don't know why you're so mad at me. And I'm like, bitch, please. But he's like, do you hate me too? And of course, I don't think Madoka could hate anything. But that cat just like the light shining on Kyubey, terrifying. And she's like, would you turn Sayaka-chan back if I did? And he's like, no. That's beyond my power. Do you know the meme of Bugs Bunny or Bugs Bunny? He's like, no. Like, that's literally Kyubey all the time. Like, well, can you do anything? No, I can't. And so then there's this conversation where she's like, you keep telling me to become a magical girl and I'd be really strong. And Kyubey's like, oh, yes. Incredible doesn't even begin to describe it. You have this unimaginable well of power, probably the strongest in the world. And she's like, if I accepted your offer, would Sayaka-chan have still become a magical girl? And I do appreciate, to give Kyubey credit, what he does say here. He says Sayaka made her own wish come true. I do love that Kyubey's like, he's honest there. And he's like, well, yeah, she would have probably still become a magical girl. You couldn't have stopped that. You doing, I'm like, the cat's telling you it wouldn't have changed anything. So you had nothing to do with her decision. And I love that he's just sitting there like a cat, like licking his paws and he scratches his ears. Like, the little animation on Kyubey in this moment is kind of adorable and distracts him from the fact that he's terrifying. And then she's just like, well, why me? And he's like, I don't know. And here's the thing. It's not that Kyubey is innocent. Kyubey is withholding a lot of information. Kyubey is just telling you just things you need to, you're on a need-to-know basis with Kyubey. And the problem is being on a need-to-know basis is deadly. That's the problem. But Kyubey doesn't see it that way. Kyubey's just like, I don't know. You guys aren't asking the right questions. That's literally Kyubey. Kyubey's like a magic 8-ball. If you don't ask the right questions, he's not going to give you any answers. And so it's just like, he's just sitting there like, I don't know why. I don't know why it's you. He's like, your latent power is on a level beyond what's theoretically possible. So he seems to be able to detect when girls have latent powers to become a witch. And that's why he seeks them out to turn them into magical girls. He's like, your soul has a lot of potential to be a powerful witch, so I'm going to target you. And Madoka is like screaming to him somehow. And he wants to figure out how to get her to become magical girl and get a hold of her soul. He's like, I want to know just as much as you do. He's like, if you were to release your power, you wouldn't just unleash a miracle Instead, you might be able to bend the very laws of the universe itself. Which could explain how Homura got to this timeline, could explain a lot of things, but I feel like we've talked about how the witches, the miracles, the good thing that happens to one person is a bad thing that happens to someone else. So it changes the equilibrium just a little bit, right? Which is what forms the witches and what gives Kyubey what he wants. So he's like, something like you could cause a whole bunch of damage and I could benefit from it. So let's do that. But I'm like, so the universe bending powers that Madoka could have, on the surface you think, oh, well, she could use that to like change the rules and change the system. Or if her soul gets corrupted enough, she could become like the worst witch ever. What's it gonna be, right? And then, yeah. And poor Madoka, I'm like, girl, you've been manipulated so much in this series. And I feel for her when she says that she didn't think there was anything special about her. That she's like, I thought I'd just stumble through life and I wouldn't be of any use or any help to anyone. So here's the thing. I've talked about it previously in another episode or two, but there are some types of people in this world. There are certain types of people that they love being depended upon. They love helping others. That's their like MO. That is their whole lot in life. My best friend, her mom is one of those types of people. She loves helping others. If she can't help others, she just feels like there's no purpose. She's like, I don't know what use of there is to me if I can't help others. And I feel like Madoka is that type of person. And the funny thing is, we don't have a lot of protagonists, I feel, in series that are a character type like her. Like, sure, there's characters that want to save others and save the day, but they're more kind of like Sayaka, where they want to be like the hero and do the justice thing. Madoka is kind of like the healer character, or the character that's on the sidelines wanting to just like heal people and help them. Like, that's her character type, right? And I feel for her when she says that she just thought she'd just stumble through life, and if she can't help anybody, then she'd just be really kind of sad and lonely and not have much of an existence. And as she says this, there's this infinity-style fountain shooting like a fountain of light into the stars. But she's like, it was frustrating and it made me feel lonely, like I wouldn't be able to do much for anyone. I thought I couldn't do anything about it. And I like that Kyubey's like, well, it looks like reality turned out to be quite different. Now become a magical girl and make a contract with me. And this moment, oh my God, where he's like, if you wish for it, you could become an all-powerful god. And we see like the inside of Kyubey's eyes. He's like, yes, wish to become an all-powerful god, and you'll become the most powerful witch in the world and destroy it. Please do this. And I'm like, no. And she's like, would I be able to do what you couldn't? Could I save Sayaka and do what you couldn't if I became a magical girl? And what does he say? He says, like, what? She's like, I made a contract. Could I return Sayaka-chan to normal? And he says, well, that would be child's play for you. I'm like, Kyubey, are you lying? Are you lying? Are you lying? Are you lying? But also, at this point, getting her to turn back to normal, I'm like, there has to be a price. What is it going to create a butterfly effect? Is it going to destroy worlds? How are we going to do this? Oh, but him saying that, he's like, is that wish worth trading away your very soul? Would you trade away your soul to save your friend? Mother trucker. And as he says that, he turns his little head so cutesy. He's like, is it worth trading your soul? I'm like, burn it with fire. Like basically what Homura does in about 5 seconds. And of course, Sayaka says, Madoka says, if it means I can help Sayaka, then yes, I'll do it. And that's when she says that I'll become a magical girl. And then bam, bitch just gets like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 holes in it at once. Mother trucker. And it just collapses. The fudge. And she's like, well, here's my gun I used. I like that Homura has like time manipulation. She was able to fire multiple shots with time manipulation. And she has all these weapons hiding in there. Of course, my fear is that now that Madoka has seen Homura pull out a Glock and like just fire multiple shots into Kyubey, that she's not going to trust Homura. And it's like, oh my God, no. And she's like sitting there like huffing and puffing. And she's like, you didn't have to kill him. How could you? And she's like, why are you always sacrificing yourself? Always, meaning she's done this before. And when she gets into the shadow with her, don't demean yourself by saying you can't help anyone or that you're useless. Because she's like, she's like, think about all the people who care about you. And then she's like, think about your family as she's under all of these lights. Oh, it's such a good shot. Yes. She's like, just cut it out. Why don't you understand that there are people who would grieve if you died? Meaning her. Like, has she, Madoka's died in the past and Homer has grieved for her. Why don't you consider the people who try so hard to protect you? Oh my God. And then, of course, Madoka's like, what is this? And she's like, have we met before? Uh-huh. Yeah. And she tries to start talking. And Madoka's like, I'm sorry. Or is that Homura that said, I'm sorry? She's like, I need to go look for Sayaka. And she's like, it's too late for Sayaka. And then poor Madoka, like, it doesn't seem like Madoka's mad at her, but Madoka's also like, I need to go. And poor Homura's like, just wait. Oh, damn it. I want to know more. We're going to find it out, but And then Kyubey says, you knew that was pointless, but you did it anyway. But I mean, she was about to make the contract, so I don't know if it was exactly pointless. And then, that shot, you just don't learn, do you? Oh, so that shot of Kyubey there, and then you see the shadow of Kyubey on the fence behind her. Oh my God! You don't learn, do you? I have plenty of spares, but you can't go around destroying them for no reason. Oh my God, it's terrifying with the red eyes. No! It's a waste. Oh my God, it just sits there, nom, 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 and just eats it up. Oh my God, freaking ridiculous. Nope. Ah! And he just blinks his eye. It's like the first time he's blinked looking at her. It's the second time you've killed me. But I'm starting to understand. I like Kyubey is so unplussed. He's so nonplussed. He's so unbothered. He's like, well, it's the second time you've killed me, but like, I'm figuring out how you fight so I can not be killed by you in the future. Terrifying. No, mother trucker. That was time manipulation magic, wasn't it? So it was magic. Okay. And he's like, oh, I thought so. I had a feeling that was the case. So you're not from this timeline, are you? So I'm glad he's like, I know all about you, who you are, and what you're planning. Oh, and he's like, oh, I see. That's why you're trying so hard to stop me. Oh my God, I love this setup. Are you that determined to change Madoka's fate? And she's like, yes. Mark my words, you will not have your way. Kyubey. Or should I say incubator? I love she like does the dramatic hair flip as she says it. Yes, I love Kyubey versus Homura. I love this fight between them. And Kyubey's like, oh, me? What? Oh my God. Meanwhile, there's like an umbrella and a body falling down and Sayaka's about to become a witch. Yep, out of the train station. Oh my God. And you can see like the station, everything, it's already got the other language on there. It's already got the other language on the screen. Oh my God. Nope, with the rain and the umbrellas. She's like, how long are you gonna keep this up? I love it. She's just constantly eating just food all the time. I love it. I'm sorry for wasting your time. And that's when Sayaka says, yeah, I don't really care anymore. Oh, I hate it being so pitch black. And the fact that she says, I don't even remember what I thought was so important and worth protecting. I'm like, it was like she's just completely fallen into this pit of despair and depression. Yep. None of it makes sense. Damn. And talking about, like, again, we talk about Berserk and the egg and the Behelit and the idea of the soul gem. It all comes together. It all parallels real nicely. When we pray for someone's happiness, someone is cursed in exchange. And that's, yep. It's like, in the case of Kyoko, her father died, but she lived. That was the exchange. And she's able to keep her sanity somewhat because she's alive, but her family's dead. In Sayaka's case, Kamajo gets to live, but she dies. So it's just like, oh, that's how magical girls work. I really was an idiot. Oh my god, and that look when she cries and the tear like hits the soul gem. Yep. I wanted to like freeze frame this and see what we got. Okay, so there's a conductor. All these conductors. Oh my god. And all them playing violins. Oh my god. Oh, like everything. And then there's her. Oh, I wanted to see like this frame by frame. Oh, and there's her watching the concert with the little C gem on her hoodie there. Oh my god. And there's him playing the violin in the center. Oh my god, and the music notes and everything. And then, yeah, her and the witch. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, that is terrifying. And yep, it just explodes and pushes Kyoko back. Yep, and it explodes and then becomes the seed. Yep. And she becomes a witch. Oh my god. Maybe not a full witch, but I think she is, yeah. Because that's the seed and everything. It's creating that whole thing. Because her body gets blown away. The body's just a shell anyway. It's the soul that's the thing. The soul becomes the witch. Oh my god. Not good, Cotton. And we see like all of the tendrils and everything coming up. Oh, and the bubbles from being underwater. Oh no. And of course Kyoko's like, not good, Cotton. Meanwhile, Kyubey, being up there on the little crane there, is like, in this world, women who have yet to fully grow are called girls, right? Girls that grow into women. So, magical girls. In that case, it only makes sense that you, who will one day grow into witches, are called magical girls. Ah, damn it! Yes! So just like how girls in the real world grow up to be women, magical girls grow up to be magical women, which are witches. Oh, it all makes sense! Ah! Kyubey, you son of a bitch. Yep, and there it goes. There's the dimension with the water and everything. Oh my god, and Kyoko's there, gonna have to try to fight it. And what about Madoka? What about Homura? It's gonna be, son of a bitch, it's gonna be something if Madoka has to become a magical girl to save Kyoko by killing Sayaka. I'm so torn. I'm so torn on how I feel because on the one hand, I don't want Madoka to become a magical girl. I've never wanted her to become a magical girl because she will literally, there's no going back, right? She won't be able to put her soul back in her body. Supposedly, Kyubey says that she could definitely change the rules and bend the universal rules. So there's a part of me that you almost feel tempted, right? You feel tempted like Madoka because you're like, oh yeah, if she becomes a magical girl, she could alter the rules. She could bend the universe. She could make herself back into a human girl along with Sayaka and the others. We could solve all these problems. But then there's a part of you that's like, no, that's just Kyubey trying to tempt you. If she becomes a magical girl, then she's stuck in the same cycle. It's just she'll become an even more powerful witch if she succumbs to the despair of it all. So it's like, I'm so torn. I don't want her to become a magical girl because I don't want her to suffer the same fate of all these other girls. But then you kind of are like, well, if she becomes a magical girl, then she could save the day. And it's like, but we've learned that that's not the case with these other girls. So why would it be the case with her? I don't know if I'm going to be able to wait till the comments for the next episode. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. We'll just see how that goes. Mm-hmm. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But this episode, I've talked for over an hour about it. We found out so much, and yet it's all coming together. In the words of Kronk from Emperor's New Groove, it's all coming together. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe. Don't make any contracts with scary looking demon cats. And I'll be back next week with episode 9 of Puella Magi Madoka Magica. Deuces.